Let's talk about one of the greatest paradoxes in all of history. How an execution, an ancient symbol of total shame and defeat, became the ultimate sign of a world-changing victory. So, right off the bat, here's our central question. It's a puzzle that really stumped the earliest Christians, and it's what we're going to unpack today. To solve it, we've got to see how a story of complete humiliation was radically reimagined through the lens of ancient scripture. And to get our heads around this, we actually have to go way back in time, centuries before the event itself, to a prophecy that was born in the middle of a national crisis. Okay, so picture this. It's the 6th century BCE. The people of Israel have been conquered, and they've been forcibly deported to Babylon. As the biblical commentator Marie-Noël Thibaut puts it, they are in some really harsh conditions, on the absolute verge of despair. Their entire identity, their faith, it was all just hanging by a thread. Now, it's in this incredibly dark moment that the prophet Isaiah introduces this key figure, the servant. And you might be thinking of a specific person, but originally, this servant was actually a symbol for the whole nation of Israel, suffering, persecuted for their beliefs, but still believing they were called to be a light for the world. And the suffering of this servant is described in these brutal, visceral terms. I mean, this quote from Isaiah, it's not just poetry. It captures real physical humiliation and violence. But here's the key. The servant doesn't just suffer, they endure. So the question is, where does that strength even come from? And this is the key to everything. Sibit explains that in the Bible, to listen isn't just passively hearing something. It's this deep act of profound trust. It means having an open ear, believing that no matter how bad things get, God is at work and can turn any evil into something good. That trust, that's the servant's superpower. Okay, so we've got this idea of a servant who suffers but trusts. Let's hang on to that and move to the next piece of the puzzle. A famous cry of agony from the cross that is absolutely not what it seems. Yeah, we all know this line. It sounds like the absolute bottom, right? The very definition of hopeless despair. It's often painted as the moment Jesus himself lost all faith. But here's the thing. If you take that line out of context, you're missing the whole story. And check this out. That famous cry of abandonment, that's only the first line of Psalm 22. Just a few verses later, the tone does a complete 180. The psalmist declares, "You have answered me." And the rest of the psalm is just this explosion of praise and thanks for being saved from death. So what that means is, this psalm was originally an allegory for Israel's return from that same Babylonian exile we were just talking about. It was their national song of survival. They used the horror of crucifixion, a common punishment back then, to describe the near-death experience they had miraculously escaped. So quoting the first line wasn't a cry of despair. It was like starting a victory song that everyone in the crowd knew the triumphant ending to. All right, so let's put the pieces together. We have two big ideas on the table: the suffering servant who trusts, and a cry of despair that's actually a song of victory. Early Christians grabbed these two ideas and used them to perform this incredible theological reversal. Faced with the absolute scandal of their leader being executed, they didn't see failure. No. Instead, they saw Jesus as the ultimate embodiment of Isaiah's servant, the one who suffered unjustly but trusted his mission completely. This old idea gave them a framework to make sense of something that was totally unthinkable. And St. Paul captures this new logic perfectly in an early Christian hymn. It's this incredible four-step journey. First, Christ starts with the status of God. Second, he willingly lets it go, becoming a servant. Third, he follows that path all the way to death on a cross. And fourth, because of all this, God lifts him up, exalting him. It's a logic where going down leads to the ultimate ascent. Now, that word obedient can sound a little rigid to us today, but Thabit gives us this really cool insight from its Latin root, ob audire. It literally means to place your ear before the word. See, it's not about blind submission. It's about a perfect dialogue built on total trust. It's that exact same listening we saw with the servant back in Isaiah. And this is absolutely crucial. This exaltation at the end, it's not a prize for good behavior. It's not a transaction like, okay, you suffered, so I'll give you a reward. Paul's theology is really clear. This is an act of grace, a completely free, unearned gift that flows from God's incredible love. Okay, so armed with this whole new way of thinking, let's go to the final hours in the Gospel of Matthew, where all of these ideas collide in a series of just stunning paradoxes. Matthew is the only one who reports this chilling detail. 30 pieces of silver? That wasn't a random amount. In Jewish law, it was the specific compensation you paid if your ox gored someone's slave. This detail is there to underscore the absolute contempt. He's being priced as damaged property. But right here, in this moment of total humiliation, as he's being stripped of all dignity, something really strange starts to happen. People begin to declare who he really is, and they are not the people you would ever expect. This table just lays out the incredible irony of the whole story. You've got the religious insiders, the authorities who are supposed to be the experts, and they're completely blind. They just mock him. And then you have the pagan outsiders, people with zero connection to the faith, and they're the ones who see clearly. Pilate's wife, a Roman, calls him a just man, and a Roman centurion, a soldier of the occupying empire, looks at this dying man on a cross and says, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Okay, so we have all the pieces. Let's finally solve that puzzle we started with. How does total failure become the ultimate victory? That recognition by the pagans, that's the signal that the mission is a success. This whole project wasn't just for one group of people, it was meant for all of humanity. So the cross isn't some embarrassing failure that needs to be explained away. It is the very moment the project is achieved. It is the victory. And this quote from Marie-Noël Thibault just nails it. The story of the cross completely flips our idea of power on its head. It says that true divine greatness isn't found in overwhelming force or glory, but in the exact opposite, in self-giving, in weakness, in an infinite love that holds absolutely nothing back. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. This ancient story pushes us to question our own ideas of what success and failure even mean. It asks us to look at our own lives and just wonder, what if the greatest strength, the most profound victories, aren't found in the moments where we feel powerful, but in the moments we're brave enough to be vulnerable?